minutes, I'll tell you about the myofascial 5-pack, about the 5 balls that you can use for myofascial release and deep tissue cell body work. First of all, as you see, there are 5 balls. The largest one is actually pretty soft, so it's much softer than the lacrosse ball. As you can see, I can easily squeeze it. The 4 smaller balls are similar in density to the lacrosse ball, and they vary in size. The reason we have balls of different size because different body areas actually require different sizes for a couple of reasons. So first of all, if you consider a professional massage therapist and her thumb, it has a pretty small and pretty highly specific surface area, and this is mimicked by the smallest ball. So the smallest ball allows you to isolate and release very small and tiny spots of myofascial tension. Sometimes the smaller ball is actually when you use your body weight, especially for people with who are bigger, you cannot feel it, and in that case we use larger balls, and also for different body areas. So for example, for upper back, this ball works perfectly. For rotators, oftentimes, as you will experience within the next couple of minutes, you may need bigger balls. The other major difference that you should take into consideration when you use these balls is that oftentimes you would think that smaller ball surprisingly provides much more intensity, and that's because compared to the larger ball, it is much sharper, so to say. However, in certain positions, bigger ball, especially when you work with very tight muscles, is much more intense simply because it's much bigger, and therefore it goes much deeper into the soft tissues rather than the small ball. So one of the most important things to understand before you even start using these balls is that at all times you should have a very comfortable and pleasant experience. And initially, when we teach clients to work, to do cell body work onto themselves, is to actually learn what is comfortable and what is not. And these tools are great to do full body cell body work and initially apply gentle pressure to each spot in your body, gradually sort of getting to know your body. Don't try to avoid having an intention of releasing something, because in that case what we see is that people go into very intense and oftentimes painful experiences, and most of us in our society lack very basic body awareness. So even people who practice yoga professionally, or professional athletes or CrossFitters, they may have very good, very well developed body-based or movement body awareness, meaning that when they move the body they can feel how the movement affects their body. But unless you have been receiving good quality deep tissue body work or manual therapy, you may not have very well developed sense of deep tissue body awareness that you can develop by applying moderate amounts of pressure and compression. So be very gentle with yourself, and on initial stages just try to apply a little bit of pressure and observe your sensations. So, and this is also a practice for you to learn the difference between having no sensation, for example, to when I press in much deeper, having a clearly painful sensation. And now your task is in understanding how much pressure you should apply to actually have a very pleasant and nice experience, while at the same time observing a wide variety of sensory experiences that your body is providing you, and the kind of signals that your body is sending to your brain. Okay, so this is all about the background information that you will need before using the ball. So now let's play a little bit. So first you can use these balls with your hand. So some massage therapists actually use it on their clients, because that surface has a pretty good gripping qualities. So it can actually grab skin. and therefore you can implement a number of manual therapy techniques on yourself or on your client. You can also, and this is what we use the balls for most of the time, you can also use your body weight. So first of all, when you lie down, so let's start from, for example, working on your feet. This is how we would do that. So first we would lie down, place the foam roller as a support, and then place your foot on the ball. And if you want, you can place your other leg on top of the left one to increase the pressure. And here you can just close your eyes and rest. And that's an exercise that yogis tend to love a lot. Notice that it's much more comfortable to do this lying down than doing this traditional way, as many people do it, working on your foot while standing up. You don't need to be tensed up when you're standing up while working on a foot. It's much easier to relax. Okay, the next one, you can use a bigger ball, so the soft, largest ball, just to explore your gluteal muscles. And here you're doing very slow rolling. So don't do this type of rolling that a lot of people tend to do. No, on the contrary, try to move very slowly, almost like a Tai Chi practitioner would move. Because the idea here is not to cover a lot of ground, but really to connect to the sensory experience that you're having, and that will help you to affect the nervous system, and through the nervous system to actually release the muscle tension. And also it's very important to understand the anatomy, so to know the muscles and feel the muscles that you're working on and know the bones. And this is something that we'll be covering in the subsequent videos. So usually we would actually self-palpate the muscles and bones before working in that area so that you know exactly where and why you're working instead of just randomly rolling around. Okay, so you can also, if you know how to palpate your sacrum, for example, then it's very useful exercise to work on the attachments of the muscles that connect to the sacrum. And I just put a ball right next to my sacrum, so I'm not applying any pressure on the sacrum itself, but I'm working right next to it on the muscle attachments. But again, that requires you to understand the anatomy. Now you can also work, I like doing this with a smaller ball on your lower back and just resting on it. You can turn on the side. If you turn the side, foam roller is very handy to keep your alignment right. Just make sure that when you work on the side that you're not applying any pressure on the floating ribs. Again, one example where you really do need to know your anatomy. Now the next exercise is with the smallest ball on your upper back. And here's what we're going to do. So you're going to place the ball somewhere between the spinal column and the shoulder blade. And again, I'm assuming that you know you can palpate with your hands your shoulder blade as well as the spinal column to make sure that you're not applying any pressure on the spinal column. Okay? And now you're either going to put the foam roller under your sacrum, that is going to increase the pressure, or you're going to constantly move. So you're going to exhale, lift the hips up and only lift them as far as you feel comfortable. Inhale, release. Then shift the body a little bit so that the ball is under a new spot. Then lift the hips, exhale. Only go as far as it feels comfortable, and inhale, release. So this is an example where when you're lying like this with the smallest ball between your shoulder blades, you're probably not feeling much. Now, if you put your hips all the way up, you may have a pretty intense and painful experience. So your aim is not to go all the way, but go only half the way where you're still having a comfortable and pleasant experience. And all of your focus should be on that one point where where the ball is. Okay? So this way you can actually work the entire area between the shoulder blades, but remember, do not apply any pressure on the spinal column itself. Now, next exercise We're going to lie down, and once, if you know where your shoulder rotators are, you can do very good work with some of the with this ball. So I would start at the inferior angle of the shoulder blade, rest your hand, and just stay there. That's a very sensitive area, so be careful, and you would really need to choose the size of the ball. So for example, if I were to put this ball, that's going to be very intense and painful. If I put the smallest ball, I may not feel much. So it's up to you to choose the size of the ball that works well for you. Now, as I move closer to my armpit, right, I go to the bigger ball. So I would use this ball here, and I would probably use this size ball here. Now, the reason it's so very important to actually recognize your sensations, making sure that you have pleasant experience, is partially because when we work with these balls on our soft tissues, the mechanism that takes place here is not just that you are affecting the mechanical properties of the tissues, but you, with this ball, you are affecting in a very direct way the peripheral receptors, mechanoreceptors that are embedded in muscles and fascia. That means the mechanoreceptors are responding to mechanical pressure that you are applying. They send the signal through the spinal column into your brain, into the brain areas that actually are involved in processing of emotions and behavior. And that is one of the reasons why after this work you may feel much lighter and much happier. Now, these areas are involved in regulating, these areas of the brain are involved in regulating our entire body and physiology in homeostasis. And therefore, it is thought that some of the signals, after being processed in the brain, they actually go back into the peripheral tissues and are involved in letting go. So essentially, you're applying the ball that stimulates the mechanical receptors embedded in the fascia. The signals goes into the brain. From the brain, the response goes back into the tissues and lets and relaxes some of the tissues. So that component is extremely important in this type of work. Okay, so now moving on to the next quick exercise, we are going to work on shoulders a little bit. So I prefer this bigger ball, and if you place the ball right above your shoulder blade, right in the area where the upper trap is, put the foam roller under your sacrum, and this way you can actually, in a very good way, affect your shoulder muscles. These are usually very tight, they have high density of trigger points, and it brings a lot of relief to people to actually work on this area. Okay? And then, so work on both sides, of course, and then you can also, in a similar way, but very carefully, you can work on your neck if you know your neck anatomy, right? So if you know where the spinal column is there, where the vertebra is, so that you're not applying any pressure on the spinal column itself, you can totally work on your neck. Okay, good. So now these were the techniques when you are lying down. You can also work when you're sitting. And of course, a lot of people in our society spend at least 8-10 hours a day sitting, and it's much better to work on yourself while you're sitting rather than not work on yourself. Of course, it's not the best scenario to do self-body work while you're working behind a computer, but look, it's better than nothing, right? So here I'm working very comfortably on my foot. I can either very slowly move and explore. Then I can just stay and breathe on one spot. I can increase pressure. I can do a little bit of an active movement, so I can do a whole lot of stuff here. Now the next exercise, I like to do this with this softer ball, and it's around the sit bone. The sit bone is this bone that you would feel if you sit on a very hard surface for a long time. And essentially what you're doing, you're rolling the ball around the sit bone. And that's a very good exercise, especially for pelvic floor, because you're also massaging your pelvic floor. Okay, and finally, you can do all sorts of things working with your mid back or upper back. It really depends on how high your chair is. So right now, for example, I am working on my mid back, and of course, if I choose a smaller size ball, the stimulation is going to have much higher specificity, so it's going to be much more like a thumb. Okay? And now the same exact concepts apply for working against the wall. Right? So you can put the ball between your upper back and the wall. Right? So this is upper back. You can just stay there. You can work on your rotators. Just lean in and breathe. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to regulate the amount of pressure that you're supplying when you work against the wall versus lying down. And of course, you can also work on your shoulders. So here you would have to move your hips away from the wall. Just make sure that the floor is not slippery, because otherwise you may slip. And as long as you're stable, you can work and do a very good job on working out the tension in the upper trap, and then go all the way into the neck muscles. Just be careful, don't roll a lot. And I know a lot of you guys are used to foam rolling and tennis ball rolling, and Soma system is really different from the traditional concepts of foam rolling. We don't do nearly as much rolling. Our work is much more specific, and because it's modeled after the professional grade manual therapy. And if you want to learn about that, of course you can do so on our website. So this is about it. We will be hopefully sending you soon more videos that will try to cover anatomy, self-palpation. We'll teach you how to palpate individual muscles. And after that only we offer you to use the tools and work on yourself. I emphasize it over and over again. It is hugely important to know your body and know your anatomy before you use any tools if you want to actually have a safe experience. So I would highly encourage you to actually take advantage of these videos and start learning your anatomy. Overview of other tools. So this is a set of 5 Soma system balls. They are of different sizes, and as you can see, this is just like even sometimes smaller than a massage therapist's thumb. And you can use it in also while lying down, while sitting. It's excellent for trigger point work. That's what it was created for, or against the wall. We have a very soft and gentle massage ball. You can use it in a similar fashion behind the chair. It's excellent for hamstrings. It is much softer than other tools. For example, these balls are not compressible, so they're more like lacrosse balls. This is very, very soft. Or you can make it actually very soft. You can also make it hard by pumping more air into the ball. And this is our newest addition. These are rollers. So as you can see, these are adjustable. You can move the rollers, bring them closer together, further apart. These are really great for working on your neck. Or you can work on your back. So these are much smaller than the foam rollers. And their surface has much higher specificity, meaning that it has a much greater capacity to isolate old spots of achiness in your body and release them. This is a focus roller. This is a tool. It has 3 active surfaces. So this guy is very pinpointed work. This is more for manual therapy, for trigger point type of work. These are the rollers, so you can work on yourself. And you can also take all this rubber and you will have a very nice and spiky stimulation in this way. And finally, once you put them on, you can use this surface more like a gua sha type of tool. So this is layperson gua sha. You're basically doing skin and underlying deeper tissues dragging with this tool, and it's very comfortable. It's our main massage therapists love this tool because it saves their fingers. We use foam roller in a very different way than in other modalities, so you can make some body work very comfortable. The traditional way to use the foam roller is something of this sort, but as you can see, you're not very comfortable here. You have to support your head. So what we can do instead, we put the foam roller to support your hips, and then you can do mini rolls, and this is much more comfortable. Alternatively, when people work with the foam roller on the lower body, this is a very traditional way to work on the hamstrings. Anatomically, it doesn't actually make much sense for two reasons, because you're straining your shoulder and the hamstrings are actually lengthened when you're working on them, so a much better way to do that is actually on the chair. You will shorten the hamstrings and soften them, and that would allow you to get in a little bit deeper and do more effective work. Similarly, instead of doing this type of foam rolling, which has the same problem, you can do this on the chair when your body is completely relaxed, and you can actually work out your calf muscles. And finally, there is a series of tools, spiky tools, which is basically non-invasive acupuncture, we use it to warm up the tissue, but it's a great tool to relieve stress and improve sleep. So if you use it for 10-15 minutes before going to bed, it really warms you up, makes you comfortable, improves blood flow, and soothes you to sleep. The roller squat can be used in two primary ways. So when you use it as a hand tool, meaning that you can put it on your hand, you can use it on yourself. So for example, massaging your quads or chest, or of course you can always use it on your partner, remembering if you're not a licensed massage therapist, then you should not be doing massage therapy, but otherwise you can bring a lot of joy to your friends massaging them. In terms of using the roller squat using your body weight, and by that I mean that you are not using the hand to apply pressure of the roller squat on top of your soft tissues, but you are actually using your body weight. So the easiest example would be putting the roller squat on the floor and working on your feet. And this is something that is very pleasant, and you don't necessarily have to roll all the time. You can just rest your feet on the roller squat or use two roller squats, and you can do that while you're working behind a computer. Similarly, you can use the roller squat to work out the tightness in your hamstrings, or you can place the roller squat, lie down next to it, and then roll on top of it, just making sure that the roller squat is not providing any pressure on the spinal column itself. And so that would be